On Halloween night, Dr. Lena Moore, a beloved veterinarian and founder of a local animal rescue, vanished without a trace after locking up her clinic. For 5 weeks, her disappearance haunted a small southern town, until investigators discovered her car in a ravine, and what was inside changed everything. It began in Asheville, North Carolina, a quiet southern town that comes alive every October. Porch lights glow under drifting fog, jack-o'-lanterns flicker on front steps, and the scent of rain mixes with wood smoke. But on Halloween night, 2021, that familiar warmth turned cold. Dr. Lena Moore, 38, was the kind of person everyone in Asheville knew by name. A skilled veterinarian, she ran Paws of Hope, a small animal rescue clinic tucked between the farmer's market and the old railway line. To the community, she wasn't just a doctor, she was a lifeline. The woman who stayed late to treat injured strays, who once sold her car to save the clinic from closing, who rescued animals others would have given up on. But beneath that kindness was quiet courage. Months before her disappearance, Lena had begun speaking out against biotech laboratories, a powerful research facility on the town's outskirts accused of illegal animal testing. She'd appeared on local TV, calling their experiments a betrayal of compassion. It earned her applause and enemies. By late September, people close to her began to notice changes. Lena started locking the clinic doors in daylight. She jumped at small sounds. A close friend, Megan Hale, recalled that she'd stopped driving home the same route twice. She said she felt watched, Megan later told investigators. Then came the messages. Anonymous emails, short, sharp, and menacing. You don't know who you're dealing with. Stop before it stops you. The sender called themselves Black Hat 31. Lena brushed it off at first, assuming it was corporate intimidation. But soon, her car alarm began going off in the middle of the night. Someone broke into the clinic, drawers rifled through, nothing taken except her hard drive. On October 31st, it rained steadily from dusk till midnight. Witnesses last saw Lena leaving the clinic around 10:40 p.m. She wore a gray coat, hair tied back, and carried a folder tucked under her arm. Records she said she was taking home for safety. Security footage captured her locking the clinic door, glancing once over her shoulder before stepping into her blue Honda Civic. At 10:55 p.m., a gas station camera caught her buying coffee and a candy bar, a brand the clinic gave out to trick-or-treaters earlier that day. She looked uneasy. The cashier later said she kept checking the window, like she expected someone to follow her. Minutes later, Lena's car was spotted heading east, toward Old Mill Road, a narrow, wooded stretch known for sharp turns and poor lighting. Locals call it the Hollow Road, a place where fog lingers low and cell signals die. At 11:12 p.m., a passing driver reported a faint glow through the trees, fire. When responders arrived, they found Lena's car in a ravine, engulfed in flames. At first, everyone thought it was an accident, slick roads, bad luck, another tragedy on Old Mill Road. But to those who knew her, something didn't sit right. She'd been careful, paranoid even. She'd told a friend earlier that evening, "If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident." Within days, whispers spread through Asheville. The rain had washed away most traces, but investigators noted one detail that would come to define the case. The car had burned, but the fire hadn't started from the engine. It began under the driver's seat. The fire was supposed to end the story, but instead, it began one. When first responders pulled the smoldering frame of the Honda from the ravine, they expected the usual, a tragic accident on a rainy night. But the deeper they looked, the stranger it became. There were no skid marks on the road, no signs Lena had even tried to brake. And inside the car, beneath the melted leather of the driver's seat, investigators found something no one could explain: a half-burned candy wrapper, the same brand Lena handed out to kids just hours before. To most, it seemed like nothing. But to the detectives who'd later pieced the case together, it was the first sign of something deliberate. Back in town, the grief was immediate and raw. Dozens gathered outside Paws of Hope, leaving flowers, dog collars, and thank you notes taped to the glass. Her assistant, Evan Rhodes, gave a tearful interview on local TV, saying, "She gave everything to this place. It's hard to believe she's gone." But within a week, belief started turning into suspicion. Lena's autopsy revealed traces of a solvent chemical in her bloodstream, one used in car brake systems and, coincidentally, in biotech labs experiments. Detectives began to wonder, had the same company she'd exposed now silenced her? Her friends recalled a series of strange events in the days leading up to her death. Her car alarm triggering at 3 a.m., 3 nights in a row. Footprints in the mud outside the clinic, where no one should have been. A volunteer claiming he saw a white van parked across the street, the same van that vanished every time he tried to approach. The town started whispering again. Some said Lena had been followed. Others said she was paranoid. But then came the email. 2 days before the crash, Lena forwarded a message to a friend titled, "If anything happens." In it, she attached encrypted files labeled biotech evidence and wrote, "Keep this safe. I think they're watching me." When investigators searched her apartment, they found those same files missing from her laptop. Her hard drive was gone, and the last piece of footage from that gas station added another layer. As Lena pays for her coffee, she glances up suddenly, startled. Just outside the window, blurred by rain and street light, a figure stands in the corner of the frame. The timestamp, 10:56 p.m., the same minute she left. Investigators tried to enhance the footage, but the face was never clear. Only a vague silhouette. But one thing was certain, someone had been watching her. By the second week, Asheville's police shifted the case from accident to suspicious death. The investigation now had a lead detective, Sarah Callan, known for her attention to the smallest details. Callan retraced Lena's final hours, the clinic, the gas station, the road. She noted the folder Lena had carried out of Paws of Hope, the one witnesses saw her clutching under her arm. It wasn't found in the wreckage. Neither was her phone. The night of the crash, the rain had been relentless. Tire marks were nearly erased. But the team discovered something the storm hadn't washed away. A faint chemical residue near the rear tire, the same solvent from biotech's lab. That's when Callan's gut told her this wasn't a random act. Someone had been inside that car. And if that wasn't unsettling enough, the threatening messages from Black Hat 31 suddenly went quiet after Lena's death. The account stopped posting. Emails ceased. But when tech analysts traced the IP address, the result made Callan's blood run cold. The signal didn't come from biotech. It came from inside Paws of Hope, a place Lena trusted more than anywhere else. The revelation cracked the story wide open. The team realized the person threatening Lena hadn't been some distant corporate enforcer. It had been someone close enough to know her passwords, her routines, her fears. But the real shock wouldn't come until weeks later, when investigators opened Lena's car again and found something they'd somehow missed. Something that changed everything. The crash site sat hidden off Old Mill Road, where asphalt turns to gravel and the trees swallow the light. For days after, the rain kept falling, washing away clues, but not the questions. Detective Callan arrived early that morning. The sun hadn't yet burned through the fog. Steam rose off the twisted metal of Lena's blue Honda, still sitting in the ravine where it had landed nose first. Fire crews had already done their work. What remained was charred, skeletal, silent. Callan crouched beside the wreck. "It doesn't add up," she muttered. The front bumper showed no impact marks, no evidence of collision. The airbags had deployed, but not from a crash, from heat. And then there was the steering column, melted, warped, but missing a key component. The brake line. When investigators traced it back, they realized the metal tubing wasn't just damaged. It had been drilled through, deliberately weakened from the inside. Whoever did it had known exactly what they were doing. But the detail that made everyone pause wasn't mechanical. It was human. Inside the vehicle, pinned near the fuse box, was that same half-melted candy wrapper. A local brand Lena had handed out to children earlier that evening at the clinic's Halloween event. Investigators logged it, bagged it, but something about it felt out of place. Why would it be there, in the most hidden corner of her car? The forensic report came back later that week. Traces of a solvent compound, identical to the one used in biotech's chemical labs, were found along the brake system. A coincidence? Maybe. But combined with the emails, the vandalism, and the missing folder, it no longer looked like a coincidence at all. Detectives reconstructed the timeline. 10:42 p.m., Lena locks the clinic, folder in hand. 10:56 p.m., gas station sighting. 11:07 p.m., 911 call reporting a flash down Old Mill Road. 11:12 p.m., responders arrived to find the car engulfed in flames. Less than 30 minutes from calm to chaos. As Callan examined the charred remains, one of her team members said something that stuck. If her brakes failed, she would have tried to steer into the ditch. But she didn't even flinch. No skid marks. No swerve. Like, she didn't see it coming. That was the moment the narrative shifted from tragedy to murder. The fire had been intense, but short-lived. Accelerants were ruled out, but the heat pattern suggested the flames started from underneath, not the engine bay. In other words, something ignited after the brake failure, a chain reaction. And when Callan reviewed body cam footage from that first night, she noticed something chilling in the background, an unfamiliar silhouette standing at the ridge above the crash site, just out of reach of the floodlights. It vanishes seconds later. The footage was too grainy to identify, but whoever that figure was, they were there before first responders arrived. Which begged the question, had they come to watch, or to make sure the fire did its job? Callan closes her notebook, the rain falling harder now. This wasn't an accident, she says quietly. Someone made sure Lena Moore never made it home. But what investigators would uncover next, inside the clinic's walls, would turn suspicion into certainty. And the person responsible? They were about to walk right into their own trap. Detective Sarah Callan took the case on a gray Thursday morning, the kind of day when the sky looked tired. What began as a missing person report was quickly shifting into something darker. Dr. Lena Moore's car had been found on the outskirts of town, her seatbelt still buckled, her hands burned from the fire. But something about the scene didn't fit. The crash looked staged, too neat, too silent. And the longer Callan stood there, the more she felt that this wasn't just an accident. It was a message. The investigation began where Lena's life had last been steady. Paws of Hope, the small animal clinic she had built from nothing. Its windows were still decorated with paw print stickers, faded by the sun. Her office smelled faintly of antiseptic and lavender oil, a small diffuser still plugged into the wall. On her desk, a single file sat open, labeled Biotech Labs, Internal Reports. Callan's first step was to establish motive, and 3 names surfaced immediately. The first was Tyler Kane, a former technician at the clinic. Fired 6 months earlier for negligence after a dog under his care died from an overdose of anesthesia. By all accounts, Tyler had taken the dismissal personally. He'd sent angry messages, threatened lawsuits, even showed up outside the clinic once, shouting that Lena had ruined his life. His alibi placed him out of town on the night of the crash, but Callan had learned early in her career that alibis often crumble under pressure. The second was Martin Graves, the director of Biotech Labs, the facility Lena had been publicly exposing for months. Her reports had triggered protests, investigations, and a media storm that cost the company millions. Graves was known for his temper, and internal memos showed growing panic about Lena's next expose. One email stood out. She's not just a vet. She's a problem that needs containment. And then there was the third, a name without a face. Black Cat 31. The anonymous sender behind the threatening emails Lena received in the weeks before her death. Short, taunting messages that seemed to know her every move. Check your brakes. You can't save them all. Every cause ends with a cost. At first, Callan assumed it was harassment from an online extremist, one of the many animal rights trolls who hated Lena for her high-profile activism. But the language was too specific, too familiar. Whoever Black Cat 31 was, they weren't an outsider. They were close. For weeks, Callan's team traced digital trails, VPN routes, cell tower pings, security logs, anything that could anchor the messages to a real person. Then, a break came from the unlikeliest place. The threatening emails hadn't come from an external IP at all. They originated from inside Paws of Hope. That changed everything. The clinic's security system had been compromised 3 times in the month before Lena's death, each time for less than 20 minutes. The access log showed a trusted user manually disabling the alarm from within the network. No forced entry, no stolen equipment. Just careful, deliberate digital tampering. Callan had seen enough to justify surveillance. Hidden cameras were installed throughout the clinic, in hallways, storage rooms, and Lena's old office. Then they waited. 2 nights later, movement triggered the feed at 12:43 a.m. The figure entering the clinic wasn't a stranger. It was Evan Rhodes, the clinic's quiet IT manager. For 4 years, he'd been the man behind Lena's systems, managing records, donations, and security. In the footage, he moved with precision, walking straight to Lena's computer, inserting a flash drive, and deleting files from her inbox. His expression was calm, almost detached. In under 15 minutes, he was gone. Detectives raided his home the following morning. What they found was a web of obsession. In his office drawer, blueprints of Lena's Honda Civic's brake system. In his closet, receipts for industrial solvent, the same compound found in the brake fluid sample from Lena's car. And on his desk, in a plain folder labeled POH Archive, printed copies of Lena's deleted emails, including drafts of the same messages sent by Black Cat 31. Rhodes was arrested on the spot. During questioning, he denied everything. He claimed the documents were backup materials, that the solvent was for cleaning equipment, that the camera footage was doctored. But when investigators confronted him with the digital timestamps and the forensic match on the chemical residue, his composure began to crack. His story changed, first to confusion, then to anger, and finally, to confession. He admitted that biotech labs had paid him to sabotage Lena's work. His task was simple: monitor her, delete files, and disrupt her data before it reached the press. He was promised $20,000 and a permanent IT contract with the company once the problem was neutralized. But when Lena discovered his involvement, when she confronted him face to face, everything unraveled. "She called me a coward," he told investigators, voice shaking. "Said I'd rather hurt animals than help people." He claimed he only meant to scare her, to loosen the brake line just enough to cause a small accident, not to kill her. But the rain that night, the steep curve of Old Mill Road, and the spark from a single wire had done the rest. "She wasn't supposed to die," he said. "Just stop." Then came the detail that chilled even the most hardened officers in the room. Rhodes admitted he had left the candy wrapper, a small red foil square found near the fuse box of Lena's car, as a calling card. He said it was symbolic. But when pressed, he confessed the truth. Lena had given it to him that morning, smiling, telling him he looked tired. He had kept it, and in the end, he used it. The moment hung heavy in the interview room. A gesture of kindness, twisted into something grotesque. After 72 hours in custody, Rhodes was charged with second-degree murder, tampering with evidence, and corporate conspiracy to obstruct justice. The case against him was airtight, except for one thing. The payments from biotech labs, the ones he claimed had financed the sabotage, had vanished. No records, no emails, no trace in their system. But Callan had already seen this pattern before. Files scrubbed, communications rerouted, traces buried in code. She pushed harder, and soon, An encrypted folder surfaced in Rhodes's external drive. Its metadata showed access by a second user, one outside the clinic, 2 days after Lena's death. The name of the device stunned everyone in the lab, BC31_relay. If Black Cat 31 had been Evan Rhodes, who was still sending files under that name? That question changed the case yet again. Because as far as Callan could tell, and the logs confirmed it, the last Black Cat 31 message was sent from Biotech's internal server 3 hours after Rhodes was already in police custody. Whatever had started inside Paws of Hope hadn't ended there. Evan Rhodes was charged with second-degree murder, fraud, and evidence tampering. His quiet composure cracked during the trial only once, when the prosecutor played Lena's final voicemail, left for a colleague minutes before the crash. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. "If anything happens to me, don't let them shut this down." He looked down and never spoke again. The court sentenced Rhodes to 25 years in state prison, but the verdict rippled far beyond the courtroom. Within weeks, leaked biotech documents confirmed what many suspected. The company had financed his sabotage and authorized payments under a reputation containment initiative. The revelation triggered national outrage. Biotech labs collapsed under investigations, its assets seized, executives resigning in waves. Protesters gathered outside their gates, holding candles, pictures of test animals, and banners with Lena's name. At home in Asheville, Paws of Hope reopened under a new name, Lena's Promise. The clinic became a refuge not just for animals, but for those who believed conscience still mattered in a world that rewarded silence. Every Halloween night, at 10:42 p.m., the moment Lena's car went dark, volunteers gather at the curve on Old Mill Road. They light candles in a ring beside a small stone carved with her initials. Locals swear that stray dogs appear from the woods, silent and still, circling the lights before vanishing again into the dark. Detective Callan, now retired, visits every year. In her final interview for the documentary, her voice is steady, almost reverent. She fought for the ones who couldn't speak. Maybe that's why her story still echoes every Halloween. Paws of Hope, now Lena's Promise, stood as a quiet testament. Every rescued animal, every healed wound, a reminder that her voice hadn't truly vanished. Some disappearances end in justice, others in memory. And every Halloween, when the stray dogs gather by the roadside, the town is reminded of one haunting truth. Kindness can be dangerous, especially when it threatens cruelty.